So today we're going to look at some of the most common mistakes when doing ollies and how to fix them. Usually they come down to either bad jumping motions or just missing some important detail that's essential for good ollies. I'm going to be using blurred out videos of actual riders making these mistakes because trying to recreate these motions just doesn't look right. They wind up looking fake, and with all my videos I try to use real world unforced footage. Just so you know, most all of these riders are actually really good riders. Some are actually competition riders who do lots of great tricks, but they either need some help with their ollies, do them differently, or just got caught on video doing a bad one. I'll be throwing in some of my own bad ollies for additional examples. So let's take a look at some of these problems and we'll give you some suggestions on how to fix them. Let's start off by showing some of the wrong type of jumps that people are doing. The first wrong jump that people are doing is they're jumping for maximum height and they're stretching their body out as if they're trying to measure their vertical. Ollies are determined by how high you can bring your feet up. So the higher your knees come up, the higher your ollies will be. The type of jump that you want to do is basically the same type of jump as jumping up onto a curb, where you're really just trying to bring your knees up as high as possible to land up on the curb. Here's a look at the two jumps side by side. When you look at these two jumps side by side, you'll see that the rider on the left probably jumps a little bit higher than I do, but my board is so much higher because I'm pulling my knees into my chest as close as I can get them versus he's all stretched out. The reason that we need to jump is so that we can get our upper body to kind of hang out in the air for about a second, which is going to buy us enough time to pull our legs up underneath us and then set them back down again to complete the ollie. Now, let's talk about by far the biggest problem that I see people have with ollies, which is they're trying to push down extremely hard on the board and bounce or force it out of the water. So once again, even though the Flowrider has a bit of a trampoline-like bouncing to it, it doesn't have enough spring to it to get a board up into the air to any decent degree. Yes, it does work on a trampoline, but not on a Flowrider. Let's first explain the incorrect motion that people are doing, and then we can easily correct it. Remember, this is what you don't want to do. So people are trying to push the board down hard into the surface, and they start with their upper body up here, and then they drop their upper body down and drive their weight as hard as they can into the board, and then they quickly pull their feet up and hope that magically their board follows them upward. So what we actually want to do is we want to do a jumping upward motion like we're jumping onto a curb, not a driving our body down into the ground motion. So we're going to start in that ready position with our knees bent a little bit, and then we're going to jump up a little bit, just enough to get our upper body to hang into the air. And then at that last moment, we're going to angle our board to allow the water pressure to pop it upward. That incorrect driving all our weight down into the board motion is completely different than the lightly jumping our upper body into the air motion. Here's a third jumping issue that I was almost hesitant to throw in here, but lately I've been seeing a few guys doing it. They're doing really good ollies, but there's just something off about them, which is that they're not jumping their upper body into the air. Usually you see it with the speed carver guys. You know, the guys who do that real fast, aggressive carving, which is totally cool. But what's going on is they're throwing an ollie in while they're speed carving, and so that they don't have to break their rhythm, they're not taking the time to set it up properly. So as they carve, they're getting the board diagonal and lifting up their knees. They're missing the part where they squat down and jump their upper body into the air. If they took that extra second to drop down into that starting position and then throw it by adding in that jumping upward motion, then it would definitely improve their ollies. The second biggest problem that I see is a lot of riders are basically doing the whole ollie motion correctly, but the board really doesn't come out of the water very much. It's like a really weak ollie. The biggest reason for weak ollies is that they're just not pushing the tail down deep enough into the current to get the power and angle needed to really shoot it out of the water. That's the major detail that is absolutely critical to getting a board out of the water. So this is the big takeaway point here. Remember this, pushing your tail into the water current is where all your power comes from to make your board fly out of the water. Getting that little extra push of the tail down into the water current, that's the key to good ollies. Now, a little note here. When I start Flowrider sessions, my warm-up runs usually consist of a lot of ollies because it usually takes about 5 or 6 ollies just to get that digging the tail into the current motion working again. Here's another thing that I found interesting. In general, the faster the Flowrider, the more difficult it is to push the tail into the water. When I go to a Flowrider like Wildwood, which is the fastest Flowrider in the country, the speed of the current makes the water feel harder and thicker. I find it much more difficult to dig my tail into the water, so I wind up using my first few runs to adjust to pushing my tail into the water just to get any kind of decent ollie. If you're not getting the compression that you want, try grabbing or at least touching one of the rails with either of your hands. To be able to touch your board, you'll have to really compress your knees up into your chest. So let your hand dangle out in front of you and think of bringing that board up to touch your hand. Try grabbing your ollies because not only does it force you to get maximum compression, but it also looks super stylish. You can even do a double rail grab where you grab both sides of the board, which will really teach you the most compression. Rocket ollies are one of the most common mistakes that happen when learning ollies. A rocket ollie is when you have the board diagonal and it never levels out because you're not bringing your tail foot up into your chest. Then you actually land it by hitting the tail down first and then the rest of the board follows. The ollie foot motion is such a complicated motion to get muscle memory for that the last component that most people learn is bringing their back foot upward to level out the board, so they wind up doing a rocket ollie. Pretty much everyone, including myself, goes through the rocket ollie stage when they're first learning ollies. Try filming your ollies, and if your back leg is straight throughout the whole ollie, then you probably have a rocket ollie problem. Now, at this point, the first parts of the jump are usually becoming muscle memory, so now you really need to concentrate on quickly bringing your back knee up into your chest and giving the board the space to breathe. A quick way to improve this is by trying to touch the tail of your board with your hand as it comes up. Another thing that I did wrong for years, and I'm still trying to correct it to this day, is when I do ollies, my board rotates on its long axis like this, and it doesn't look good. What I'm doing wrong is I'm bringing my feet up directly under my body. And when you do that, the bottom of your feet don't stay square with the water below you. I finally found a skateboard video that identified this problem for me. So instead of bringing my feet up directly under me, what I should be doing is bringing my feet and my shins up more in front of my body. You're almost trying to keep your shins in a vertical alignment. Not only will this keep the board square, but it also allows you to get your ollies a little bit higher off the ground. All right, that's it for troubleshooting ollies. Hopefully you can identify what problem you're having and there's a solution here to help you. You can also try recording yourself and slowing it down, which helps a lot to identify these problems. If you can't figure it out on your own, then post a video to a Flowrider Facebook group, and I'm sure lots of people would love to help you out. Anyway, I still have lots more ollie stuff to share with you guys, so I'll see you on the next video.